This is the Retirement Solution Podcast with financial advisor Jon Hicks, founder of J. Hagan Capital.
It's January. The new year has begun. Every year we talk about how they go by faster and faster, and we seem more and more surprised. Why? Why are we surprised?
Days go by slowly, but years go by with unbelievably fast. Mm-hmm. It's just crazy. Mm-hmm. Why is that? Why does that feel that way?
I don't know.
Why is it every single Tuesday I'm like, oh my gosh, is it not Friday yet? But then
by Friday,
when it comes down,
you're like,
but then it's like Friday's like, oh my God, that's exactly it. Hold on, what did I get done this week? You know, how many soccer games did I have access? All this other stuff, and it's like, oh my gosh, we did a ton of stuff. No, but anyway, it's crazy.
And your wife Tennille, you've got your two daughters.
Absolutely.
Do you guys do the New Year's resolution thing or any?
Yes.
With each other, as a family, what's the Hicks household?
So I created the resolutions for both of the girls this year myself.
Oh, you did?
And I said, yes, my resolution. I told them, because I have two little girls, and to be honest with you, they are fabulous. I may be a little biased, but they're fabulous. This year, the one and only resolution is they're not allowed to grow up anymore.
Aww.
They have to be right here forever. Yeah. It was a great Christmas season. We got to meet their, my oldest has a boyfriend. And we got to talk to him, and he is I have a teenage daughter. So for any teenage boy, I'm going to say he's a good kid. No, he's a good kid.
Okay,
he's a good kid. So I mean, much better than tolerable. He's a good kid. And then I like his parents.
I was setting the bar high by saying tolerable. This is good news.
This is more than I thought I would do. This is more than I thought I'd give. Yeah. But I told him, it's like, okay, no more growing up. Like it's too much. Like it's too crazy. She's going to get her driver's license this year. So yeah, but that's the main thing about resolutions for me.
Got it. Well, for a lot of us, for those of us listening on WHIS this morning, maybe you're setting goals for yourself. The fitness goal is always the biggest goal, and financial goals. That's usually in the top list of resolutions. Maybe you just want to read more. We're going to combine some efforts here, and bring up one of your favorite. Is he your favorite author? Is he a favorite? I know that you just really like Morgan Housel and his book, The Psychology of Money. Yeah.
Yeah, so Morgan's awesome. So I had the chance. So I was an executive producer of a movie that he was kind of one of the key characters of, doing a documentary on investment savings and how to spend money. Mm-hmm. And it was great. So I got to spend a couple days with him before
That's
the
cool. I didn't know
the movie premiere.
I didn't realize you'd met him and hung out with him.
Awesome guy. Yeah. He talked about going up there into the woods in Denver in a big Ford Bronco Sasquatch and just writing. And he said that it was one of the most awesome times of his life to be able there and to zone in. And he learned so much about the psychology of money and income planning and retirement in general. Mm-hmm. And this is a guy that really had no training at all in finances at all. He was a journalist.
Yeah.
But he frankly has written a couple of the best books in the industry. As basically a layman for laymen on what is the psychology of money. How can we earn it? How can we hold on to it? How can we use it judiciously so that it doesn't run our lives? And he's just great. He's a good overall human being too.
Okay. All right. So if you've got a resolution, you want to read more, you want to educate yourself, Morgan Housel might be a good guy to look up. He best-selling financial author, books including The Psychology of Money, which I know you're a big fan of, John. Also, his latest book,
a great one.
Same as Ever, is his latest book. So he was on with Fox Business. They asked about his philosophy, and he answered, save like a pessimist, but invest like a reasonable optimist. This is Morgan Housel.
Look, if you think the future is going to be great and everything is going to be okay, that's not optimism, that's complacency. Reasonable optimism is, look, what's going to lie in front of us is a constant, never-ending minefield of setbacks and disappointments and bear markets and recessions. But if you can endure those and survive those financially, the rewards for the optimists over the long term tend to be incredible.
What's your take? Do you have a philosophy as you're crafting out plans and the optimism versus I know you have to look at things pessimistically. As a financial advisor, that's an obligation that you have to take.
Without question. And when you think about what he just said there, so the entire concept of saving for retirement is really, that philosophy is 10 words deep. Save like a pessimist, invest like a reasonable optimist. Guys, that is exactly it. So let's break that down, because I think this is really, really important if we understand what it is. So much of what I do is really less educating on minutia and granular things. It's really understanding really comfortably the landscape. if you understand the macroeconomic view, the holistic view, if you can see that, guys, then everything else gets so much clearer. Because you realize, wow, whether I own that Vanguard fund or that Schwab fund or that Fidelity fund, it doesn't really matter that much in the end. The real thing is it should you own any of those funds? Is it the right risk tolerance for you? Is it going to provide what you're looking for? Is the ride smooth enough for you to be able to stay on it for the long haul?
Yeah.
So when you're thinking about what does it mean to save like a pessimist? And this is, I think, is great. So in our practice, what I focus, I want everyone to assume these 4 major things. Number 1, assume that healthcare is going to be twice as expensive as you think. That's not a joke. That's for real, because we're seeing it. The cost of insurance, just to have health insurance, the cost of in-home care, the cost of medicines, of prescriptions, all of this is growing astronomically. Now, that is a big thing. So we have to be pessimistic when we think about what it's going to cost for long-term care or just healthcare in general. Okay. That's number 1. Okay. Number 2, we want to be a pessimist about how long we live. I know that seems odd, but that means that we need our retirement plan. We need for at least one spouse to probably live to age 95. So when we're planning for this, we have to expect that at least one of a couple will last to age 95. Now, why do we do that? Because that's kind of pessimistic. It's thinking that your savings has to last. If you retire at age 65, it needs to last for at least 30 full years of inflation, of war, of famine, of pestilence, of whatever the world throws at us. It has to be able to do that. So that would be pessimistic, but I think it's very smart. So those are the first 2. The third one, you have to build cash reserves for the unexpected. So things like what? Well, a roof replacement, or your adult kids needing help, or a market crash.
Don't get me started on transmission.
There we go. For real. And these are things that aren't always covered by insurance, and they can cost thousands of dollars. And if they just happen all at the same time, which is how my life always seems to happen. No joke. We had leaks in our South Carolina house after we had just done a new roof. So even though we had just done the new roof, they diverted something weird. It's $40,000 of issues. We've already had a claim. So the question is, should we put the claim in? Well, we have to. But the deductible's $20,000. It's all those things. And they just happen at the same time that tuition's due for schools, at the same time that property tax, it just goes that way, right? So we have to build cash reserves for the unexpected. And what that typically means in our office, we do the bucket system. We need to make sure that first bucket is filled for at least 2 to 3 years worth of income plus a little bit of that extra. Have to do it. So that is what it means to save like a pessimist. And the last one, we have to max out tax advantaged accounts, whether that's tax deferred, like our 401ks or IRAs or HSAs, or it's tax free. But we have to be thinking cognitively, because I do not think that the future is going to have a very optimistic tax structure. I do not. When you look at the debt we currently have in this nation and the money we're spending, no matter what the administration says they're trying to do to curb costs, we're still spending more than we're bringing in. And that is a monumental problem. So we have to understand pessimism means that we're looking at those 4 things. Now, once we've done that and we're kind of thinking about things, here's what it means to be a reasonable optimist, right? Number 1, we have to believe in long-term growth. Why? Is it just because we're naive, or we just hopeful, or we're just praying? No, because history proves it. When you look at any 10-year period in the United States, only one was negative. Only one 10-year period. So what happens in any given year? Well, who knows? There could be an up year 20%. It could be a down year 40%. But if you string them together, 5 years and 10 years, there is a lot of history that long-term growth historically has happened. So that's number 1. Number 2, being a reasonable optimist means stay diversified. You need to own stocks or stock funds. I prefer exchange traded funds. They're run by the country's largest money managers like Vanguard or BlackRock or Fidelity or Schwab. Those are all acceptable. Don't get all hung up in the company. You just want to make sure it's low cost, it's fully transparent, and it's flexible, right? But you want to own stocks, bonds, or bond alternatives. So that means you need something safe, something that's going to pay you a stated rate of interest. And right now, while bonds are very volatile, this is a good time to consider what are other fixed income options? What are things that are going to give you an income, maybe 4 or 5 or 6 or even 7% a year for income, right? So whether they're bonds or bond alternatives, we need something safe. I do believe in real estate. Real estate has created more millionaires in this country than any other asset class. So we have to understand real estate is paramount to letting long-term growth happen in compounding your portfolio. And I do think that people need to look at, doesn't mean they invest in, they need to look at alternatives. Okay. Sometimes they look at gold or commodities as alternatives. Sometimes they look at hedge funds or alternative insured accounts as alternatives. It doesn't matter, but you need to explore, are there things there that offer barriers or protections or safety nets or insurance to make certain that things work more in your favor? So we want to make sure we don't panic in those downturns. We want to be diversified. Okay. Yeah. And then the last piece of that puzzle about being reasonably optimistic is understand that things are going to evolve. Capitalism is real. Productivity is real, and it changes all the time. So even though you may craft a plan and the overall plan doesn't change, a lot of those investments by their very nature will evolve and flow or be tax efficient to do other things. And you need to be willing to do those moves. If you haven't done that and embraced the evolution, for instance, if you have over $500,000 saved and it's primarily in mutual funds, guys, it's already evolved. Exchange traded funds, individual equities, or other much lower cost structures are currently available. That is one easy evolutionary piece that we can do. But that's what it means to be a reasonable optimist, to understand that when you're building your plan, you kind of want to have a little bit of some realism there. But then when it comes to the long term, so that we don't make dumb decisions, expect over the long run for history to maybe not repeat itself exactly, but it'll probably rhyme. If we do that correctly, we're going to be really close to creating better plans.
Jon and his team here to help you figure these things out, to save like a pessimist, but invest like a reasonable optimist for your financial future. So if you have questions about these things, if you're realizing the pessimism areas, the healthcare, the longevity, the cash buckets, the tax advantage accounts are things that you don't have within your plan, let's get to work helping you understand how to put those things in there, the things that you need, of course. 502-317-0840 is our number. Give us a call right now. Let's set a time on the calendar for an initial phone conversation with one of our advisors. This is a no fee, no obligation, initial step in the planning process, just a casual, easy conversation. You're going to be able to ask some questions, explain what your worries are, and then one of our advisors is going to explain to you how we might be able to help figure out a plan for you and your goals. 502-317-0840. Call us right now to set a time on the calendar. We've opened up 5 spots just for radio listeners today, so call us to reserve a time for you, for your financial future. If you're over 59, if you've saved at least $500,000, that's where you're really going to see the benefits of this kind of planning take effect. Jon and his team ready to show you what they can do for you. You can also find us anytime, retirementsolutionradio.com, or give us a call right now, 502-317-0840. What's that sound? The collective sigh of parents all around the area that they've made it through another holiday season. Congratulations.
Now they just got to clean up from underneath all the wrapping paper and all of the boxes and all of the trash that is still sitting around various parts of my home because you can't get it all into the trash
amazing.
Cans. It takes weeks. I remember last year was like February, the first week of February, by the time we got all of the Christmas stuff out of the house. Mm-hmm. That's just what Santa brought, right? Mm-hmm. You know, and then the refrigerator will probably go through March before finally all of those leftovers and things that we kind of forgot is like, hold on, was that 5-layer salad or was that bean dip? I'm not exactly sure.
Either way, don't eat that.
So we're just going to throw that Tupperware away. And next year we'll ask for more Tupperware for Christmas. Exactly. That's how it goes in my house.
Some things you just let go. There are some things, let's just let it go and move on. Give that New Year's gift to yourself of just letting some things go. It's the path you choose sometimes. Obviously, when it comes to this time of year, there are also a lot of resolutions that are being made. I think the number one resolution every year is physical health, right? Get fit, get your health together.
You know, it's amazing. If you actually get it in a fit state of mind and you actually exercise your body, it is amazing how good that is for your brain and your psychology and your emotions. I'm always remiss when I go through periods of time where I just haven't worked out, and then maybe you get sick or maybe you tweak something and you just don't work out for a while. And when you get back to it, it's amazing how those endorphins start kicking and all that lactic acid gets burnt off. And you're just like, oh my gosh,
think better.
I can think like a human being again.
Helps sleep better.
It's always great. So it's impossible to get to the gym now because there is not a single parking space. But you just wait a couple weeks, guys. You just wait a couple weeks, and it'll be easy, smooth sailing.
Well, meanwhile, for those of you here with us on WHAS today, maybe you have a goal to get your financial health in order in the new year. So let's discuss that, John, because that's, of course, what you guys do every day, every week, every year at J. Hagan Capital. And when it comes to our market investments, the what to know, what to do for 2026, if you are into listening to financial news media, you've definitely heard forecasts for what to expect in 2026. What are some takeaways that we've heard? This is Morningstar's Amy Arnott.
I think it's important to remember that market volatility is part of life and something you have to live with as a long-term investor. I think it's always helpful to try not to get too distracted by day-to-day headlines and is the market up or down on a given day. I think if you can stay focused on your long-term goals, diversify your portfolio, and rebalance, those things are all going to help you in the long term.
I appreciate Amy's calm tone. And sound, a lot of these people that are in the financial
a lot of the president. Very calm, very soothing, completely respectful. I mean, almost the same.
We're just going
to Trump write that speech?
We're just going to let that one sit. We're just going to.
No, I'm just saying. And here's where I go with that. It is always easy to say, you just rebalance and be calm and diversify. But then when all of a sudden the headlines read, the world is blowing up, the president is deporting everyone, no one is allowed to do business here, we're going to tariff everyone under the sun, tax rates are going up, midterm election, blah, Democrats did this, Republicans did that, blah, 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 spies from Russia, guys, that is what we deal with every day. Yeah. And it is not easy to pop a Valium and just pretend like it's all fine. This is where people, unfortunately, lose their mind and in the process lose good growth in their portfolios because they do not have the right risk metrics in place. But I do want to focus on a couple of things that Amy said because every single one of us can do this. Now, here's my take on rebalancing.
Okay.
You don't need to do it all the flipping time. You do not. As a matter of fact, if you have a good strategy, which for most of us should be, own good quality things that we think are going to be good for the foreseeable future. Now, if we do that, we don't need to be changing stuff all the time. Now, every once in a while, a company falls out of favor, or someone cooked the books, or interest rates changed and it changes how something works. That happens. I'm not going to say all the time, but sometimes it does happen. But do we need to be making changes all the time? Absolutely not. As a matter of fact, I think quarterly performance reviews are ridiculous. I think that at a minimum, we should be looking at our accounts quarterly. Okay. But do we need to have an actual conversation? Often not, at least not about performance or investments. Now, if we have quarterly check-ins where we're looking at making sure our diversification is right on our tax strategies or on our estate planning strategies or to make sure our health coverage is adequate of what we need. And we're going through how we feel, meaning how our bodies are responding. Now, that's good to do on a quarterly basis, but looking at our investments all the time, frankly, it's a waste of time and it causes people to make dumb decisions. Now, in our office, what we do when it comes to rebalancing, it's automated. And for most people, when we're talking about tax rates and tax structures, we don't want to be selling and buying stuff all the time because it can create tax bills. So at least once a year, which is why in our office, we think and we feel very strongly, we have to have a sit-down conversation with our clients once a year because number one, we want to make sure that their goals are still going the way we thought. Number two, we want to make sure that they don't have any extra needs, that their savings could frankly do good things for them, right, Heather? To think that, wow, you've saved millions of dollars, but you were kind of like being frugal on a $15,000 expenditure that would completely change, how your house functions for you. Like those are things that we want to make sure we go over. But when we're thinking about getting too much involvement in our finances, that's when people blow up. So once a year is how we want to do it. And I also like trigger-based rebalancing. So when she says, hey, you can be calm if you rebalance, guys, we can automate it this time and day and age. We can do it either annually or once quarterly. Now, does that require having conversations all the time? No, because often all you're doing is rehashing the same thing, or you're making slight adjustments that are unnecessary. So I think that when you see this volatility, here's the question to ask yourself. What is your rebalancing strategy? What is your defensive mechanism? Do you have hedges? Do you have puts? Do you use derivatives? Do you have protection on your portfolios? Do you have insurance against the downside risk? What are you doing to mitigate that downside risk? Because most of our clients, they know, hey, John, I know that the way that we built our strategy, I should really not have more than a 10 or 11% hit on my portfolio. And that could happen. And we almost expect it to happen a few times over the course of retirement. But as long as that worst case scenario is comfortable, then we shouldn't have to be making a lot of changes. And some people say, hey, John, I've taken way too long to make all this money. I have spent my entire life. I don't want to risk anything. Well, there are strategies and there are assets that we can utilize that can do exactly that. They can keep the money completely safe. Now, is it going to have the same growth as other investments? No, which is why I think that we should always be diversified, like Amy was saying. We need some assets that can grow. We need other assets that are built for protection. And we need third assets that are built specifically to give us income. So if we do all that correctly in the very front of building a retirement plan, we should never have to think that we need to make tweaks all the time. The tweaks come as your life changes, or your path changes, or you want to relocate, or you get tired of the winter in Kentucky and you want to go further south, or you want to take the kids to Belize. We just had a client who decided, hey, John, you told me that we had a banner year this year. We have an extra $100,000. Well, we want to spend 40,000 of that and take the kids and grandkids to Belize. We think it would be a lot of fun. It would be some heat that we can get in February when it's so cold here.
Right.
That, guys,
that alone is worth investment. The $40,000.
Yes. And that, to me, that is not an expenditure.
Yeah.
That's an investment.
Yeah.
That's an investment in their family. I look at that as almost like a trust design, because we're actually giving and paying forward while we can and enjoy it ourselves.
Yeah.
But those are the things I think we need to talk about, because my guess is that volatility is going to be all over the place. Midterm election year, a lot of stuff the administration is trying to get done, a brand new year. This could be the time, especially in the beginning of the year, to check your plan. Not how you just did last year. Last year happened to be a pretty good year. This year, my guess is there's going to be a lot of ups and a lot of downs, and we don't know how those are going to string together. If you do not have a plan that helps control your risk tolerance and how you see your rebalancing, you need to get one. Talk to your guy, call us, whatever, but go ahead and do that now before, unfortunately, all those headlines cause us to make decisions that are less attractive than they should be.
All right, let's talk taxes, John. And I know that I do not have to explain to you, of all people, that taxes are complicated. The tax code, well, we've talked before about the amount of pages that are involved in the current tax code.
Over 76,000 pages of the current tax code. No joke. 76,000 pages.
No problem.
I don't even think that includes some of the special stuff. Maybe it does. I can't remember.
So,
but I mean, that's a lot.
Right. To say the very least. So again, and this is me speaking and playing the listener, because I don't even really know exactly what it is I'm asking you here. That's how that's how hard it is for me to wrap my brain around it. So I'm asking you to speak slowly, good sir. There are some advantages in retirement planning that disappear as your income goes up. Those things include the new $6,000 deduction for being over 65, your ability to contribute to a Roth, the lower premium for Medicare Part B, your IRMA, the taxing on Social Security. Again, these all depend on keeping your income level down. But of course, we all want our income to be going up. As even in retirement, inflation goes on, life goes on. This is where I get confused. I realize this is my own question for you, but is there a part of tax planning that tries to keep our taxable income below certain levels? What is it that we need to be doing in this space?
Yeah, that's probably the biggest question. When it comes to tax planning, what are we really even talking about?
Yeah.
And here's how it kind of comes this way, right? Most people, when they go into retirement, they're thinking, how do I get the biggest income possible? Some people go on that line. But if you're a pro, It should be a slightly different game. It should be, how can I control my taxable income so that I can maximize my benefits, but minimize my tax bill, right? Okay. And so that is really the thing. That's what the pros are trying to do. So the really savvy family offices, the billionaires, the multimillionaires, and many of you guys are out there listening today. The thing of it is that most of us, it's a little bit of a change of a paradigm of our thought. It shouldn't be, hey, how do I pay the least amount of taxes this year or this quarter? It should be, how can I pay the least amount of money that I've saved my whole life for? How do I pay the least amount to the government in order to get it to the next generation or to spend it the way I want? That should be the thought. Now, the OBA and these new tax changes that happen, they create not just a simple strategy for taxes. There are actually cliffs built into the tax code. And if you do just one more dollar of income, or you can't use $1 of a deduction, it can cost thousands of dollars. As a matter of fact, you mentioned one of them. So Heather, one of the things that, that most people are not necessarily always aware of, the new federal tax code, if you're over 65 years old, as long as your joint income is less than $150,000, then you actually qualify for a $6,000 credit or deduction on your taxes. So that is a big deal. So we want to make sure that everyone can get that. And a lot of people say, well, John, my income's way too much.
Right.
Well, should it be? We're going to talk in just a second about an example of a client that we helped completely change their income, where it came from, so they can qualify for these deductions. But not only, losing out on deductions, some people, because they do Roth conversions and they thought that they had the math right, unfortunately, they've put themselves into a Medicare premium tailspin, right? Where they can potentially pay, Heather, up to $4,000 more a year in extra Medicare premiums or IRMA penalties because of their income. And sometimes by purposefully doing Roth conversions, it creates that. Right. We know ways around that, but we have to plan correctly. Of course, if you have too much income, 85% of your Social Security becomes taxable, right, at your highest marginal rate. So that can suck tens of thousands of dollars a year, unfortunately, out of our pockets if we don't plan correctly. And it can also change our ability to contribute to a Roth IRA. So when we look at all these things, it really boils down to, we want our clients to know we do strategic income management. Every year, and this is why I say, when we're designing a tax plan, we're really trying to design it for the next 15, 20, 30 years, for the entire length of retirement. But every year, we have to run that year specific math. And it changes a lot of things. It changes on years we have a tremendous boom in the market and we have tremendous gains. There are several different things we can do to mitigate some tax bills or to defer other tax bills. That can be very attractive. Now, other situations, we say, wow, this year we have so much income from last year. Let's go ahead and reserve that. And let's go ahead and make a much larger conversion and not take income in years, let's say 2 and 3. The difference can be enormous when we're understanding bracket management. So the two things I just mentioned, should we be strategic in how we plan our income? Always in retirement. And secondly, should we make different changes based on math for that given year? Always. The choreography of how we do Roth conversions is really more of an art as opposed to a science. Most people just look at the tax code and they think there are specific sets of numbers and rules. No. It's how you massage it. It's the choreography. You can dance like a heavy metal a mosh pit guy,
Uncle
or you
Sam,
can dance like
dance?
or you can dance like the Russian ballet, right? So it's very, very different in how it comes out at the end. But the result is going to be based on, what are you looking for? Are you more of a Metallica fan, or are you more into Russian ballet? It just depends. Everyone's going to be different. But when we're going through those things, then things also pop in like capital gains harvesting, things like that. So all of these things are really important. And that's why we have to have an ever evolving tax strategy. Every year, the government's potentially going to change tax rates. I mean, in 2026, this is a midterm election year. So we don't necessarily know after November what next year's tax code is going to be. We have ideas, and they're not all bad, no matter what happens in November. But the idea is could it change? It absolutely could. So we have to make sure that we have a flexible plan that allows us to potentially save as much as possible. And guys, if you have saved millions of dollars in your retirement accounts, you could potentially save hundreds of thousands, if not millions of dollars by applying the right tax strategy. That is not inflating the truth at all. We have actually seen people. Let me give you an example.
Okay.
So we were working with a couple who decided to retire at 63. Now, they were living off of $80,000 a year from their traditional IRAs, which sounds perfectly fine, right? Mm-hmm. Wrong. They were losing out on the senior deduction. They were paying higher IRMA surcharges than they needed to. 85% of their Social Security was taxed. So what we did is we took their exact same income needs, but we just restructured it. We started pulling $40,000 a year from their Roth IRA. We took $25,000 a year from their taxable brokerage account, which was primarily qualified dividends, and we only pulled $15,000 from their IRA. Their lifestyle did not change one single bit, but we reduced their tax bill by over $12,000 a year, and they dodged the IRMA bullet. That's the bigger thing. So that actually saved them potentially another $1,500 to $2,000 based on what they were thinking about doing. Guys, that is tremendous. An extra $12,000 a year is $1,000 more a year that you could spend, or you could give, or you could gift, or you could have completely just compounding for you. That is $1,000 a month in that one simple example. So what we need to do is we need to make sure we're calculating our provisional income correctly. If you don't know that, does your CPA tell you about that? Does he ask you those questions? What about your tax person? Does your advisor do that? If they don't, guys, I hate to tell you, they should be doing that. That is what our firm does for all of our clients. We want to advise based on income. What are the things that we can do to put our clients in a better position? If you have not started Roth conversions, I'm going to ask the question very bluntly. Why not? We know for a fact that the government is $40 trillion nearly in debt, and there are no ways to make that back except to take it from us. Realistically, tariffs can only do so much. So we have to ask ourselves, are we doing the right thing by getting our money in tax-free accounts? We have to consider that. And every year, we need to consider in retirement where that income is coming from. It shouldn't be changing drastically every year, but it should be methodical and it should be systematic based on how to get the lowest tax bill to give to the government at the end of the day. So those three things done correctly can put tens of thousands, if not hundreds of thousands of dollars in your pocket if done correctly. If you don't know how your plan works, give us a call today.
We're just trying to simplify stuff, John. Why is everything so difficult?
Because that's what people make it to be, right? You know, if everything was easy, if we just had the easy button for everything, think about how few skilled people we would actually need and require, right?
Well, I'd be happier. So let's make it about me for a quick sec.
Let's do it. Let's do it, Heather. All about you today.
Thank you.
Let's have that day today.
Thank you.
We're going to celebrate Heather today.
I'm going to sit on this lily pad and...
I like it.
Let's talk about families. Let's talk about dynamics and circumstances that are happening. Important to know at J. Hagan Capital, legacy planning a big part of the conversation, working with married couples. We've joked before how, yes, your degree is in financial advice, but you seem to have if we could compare to what it takes to get a psychology degree, helping couples and family situations, you do a lot of that.
I mean, I'm amazed that I'm probably more of a marriage counselor with a financial background, right? More of a financial type marriage counselor than almost anything else. I think I have prepared and planned more vacations for people than any local travel agent in the tri-state area. No joke. Because my whole thing is, hey, listen, guys, you won. You want to go to Italy? You want to go to Europe? You want to go to Belize? Hey, do you just want to see the continental United States? Do you need an RV? Do you not have enough frequent flyer miles? Let's fix that, because the greatest thing ever is to know you've got enough money to do what you want to do. That is the whole thing. So I celebrate that, and I want people to recognize, hey, it's a different phase, right? Everyone gets all freaked out and clammy. Oh my gosh, I may not have enough money. No. If you have the right plan, you can basically be a little cavalier. Now, I'm not saying aloof, but a little cavalier and say, hey, I know where my money's coming from. I know that I'm going to be tax efficient. I can do this. I can get that boat, even if it's the worst decision I'll ever make. I can do a 21-day Mediterranean cruise, even if I'm lactose intolerant and we're going to France. I can choose to do those things and pick my own outcome. Yeah. And that's the greatest thing about what I get to do. But there's a lot of psychology and marriage counseling along the way.
There is, and family counseling.
There really is.
And because money, especially for a particular generation, you don't talk about money. Just you hold it close to the vest.
Sure.
So I think that there's a lot of that when it comes to the family dynamic. Let's talk about this column that's on Kiplinger.com. A reader wrote in saying that they retired at 65. They have $7.8 million.
Good.
And they have regrets. They feel like they've oversaved. Not only that, but here comes the family dynamic. Their adult son, he's in his 40s, and they're seeing him on a similar path. So they're wondering if, when do you intervene and say, hey, you should reconsider the path that you're on, because here we are and at this point, I don't know how, I think that they might be into their 70s now. They've got almost $8 million. The feeling of we should have spent it. We should have lived more of our life rather than having all these savings. Now here we are. And are we even going to be able to use it? Our son's coming along seemingly in the same circumstance. What advice would you give to somebody in this position? Is it really even possible to oversave when it comes to retirement?
Well, see, that's the question behind the question, right?
Right.
So can you oversave retirement? Well, the answer is technically yes, but it happens to be the best problem that you could probably have ever when you're thinking about that. But the real issue isn't the number. It's not about having so much money. The question is, it's the psychology. It's the psychology that got you there. So if someone is basically in their 60s, late 60s, saved $4, $5, $6, $7, $8 million, there's usually a couple ways that happened, right? They either were swinging for the fences and were very, very aggressive and got it right, which happens a lot less frequently than you think, or part number two, and this is where almost everyone falls into the camp. They were just methodical about putting money away, not overinflating the need to change their investments all the time. And they were just very frugal. They stayed within a budget. When they got their extra raises, they put some of it toward investing. They put some of it into their savings and they didn't spend it. That psychology is great, but it's often a psychology of scarcity. It means that there may not be enough. So save, be a little squirrel and go ahead and get all the acorns and nuts you can, because the winter could be very, very, very challenging. But when you get to a certain point, here's what I want. And here's my advice to that reader that wrote in. Celebrate the win, guys. Celebrate the win. $7.8 million at age 65 means you crushed it. You have the financial freedom that most people will never experience. And so when people talk about first world problems, the fear of I have regrets, or of that Milky Way commercial, I have regrets.
The Snickers, no regrets.
I have regrets. I should have spent some money. We were clipping coupons to go to the Ponderosa, and I refused to go to Stony River or Malone's or Jeff Ruby's because I could not envision spending more than $20 on a steak. Well, here's the thing. You may never enjoy a $90 steak. That's not the point.
Right.
The point is, don't overcomplicate it. The greatest thing that we all can do, though, is to not have regrets. This is why. This is the reason why I developed my firm the way I did. I want people to celebrate retirement. I do not want to be flippant. I do not want them to run out of money, but I do want them to front load their retirement, which puts tremendous stress on a portfolio. But what does that mean? It means when you first retire, no matter how much money you have, I want you to live really well for the first couple years. Why? Because I want a lot of those bucket lists to be checked off. I want a lot of those travel plans to be done for two huge reasons. That is probably going to be the youngest and the healthiest that you will potentially be over the course of your retirement. That's number one. Okay. And number two, I want you to have experiences that give you something to talk about, to give you something to live, to give you an opportunity to maybe be a pivot point in how you evolve over the next 15, 20, 30 years in retirement. Those two things, talk about psychology earlier, those two things are psychological miracles if we do those correctly. So most of our clients, they have a tough time, and I'll tell you about a client here in a second, but they have a tough time when they've saved $3, $4, $5, $10, $20 million to let go of some of it. They feel like, no, I don't want to spend that. I don't want that extra $30 mat for people to wipe their feet on in my front door, even though they get $10 million in their account, because it's just going to get ruined anyway. People are just going to wipe their dirty feet on it. Guys, it's okay. So when we think about that, what I really want people to understand is this is a great reason to work with a skilled advisor, a great reason. Because once you know that you have no shot of running out of money, as long as they do things correctly, you have a very minimal, if not a non-existent chance to fail in retirement. Then the question is, what would truly give you happiness? What would truly build something? What can you invest in? Not as an asset, but invest in that will improve your quality of life. Is it new orthopedic shoes? Is it having your dentistry done? Is it going to have a professional chef come and show you in your home how to cook correctly, or to have someone meal prep for you, or to work out with you, or to work out beside you and give you goals? What will enhance your life? For some people, it's travel. For some people, it's more togetherness for their families. But I see this unfortunately happen all the time. Yeah. So we had a client that was getting ready to retire, and they saved about $4.5 million. And to be honest with you, they wouldn't have spent that over the course of a lifetime. They lived in the same house for over 40 years. They drove a 15-year-old car. They literally still clipped coupons. They made sure that those digital ads from Kroger, they always had them downloaded. When we did a Monte Carlo simulation, so a Monte Carlo simulation is where I run this through a computer, and it basically comes up with 10,000 different variations of what the future could hold. Okay. Well, it showed a 100% probability of this couple dying with more money than they started with.
How often do you get 100% back on one of those runs?
100%.
Wow.
Because they just didn't spend, and they had $4.5 million, and they were risk averse. So they weren't going to put their money in things that would lose it all. They weren't even built that way. And so when we realized that, I said, guys, look, you're playing defense when the game is already over. You won. So let's act like it. So he finally took his wife to Italy. They said it was the best trip of their lives. Yeah. They listened. Aww. They not only went to the Amalfi Coast, but they also went north and went to Portofino. And he said this was what we needed. It completely refreshed their life concept and the things that he said the colors were more vibrant. The flavors were more real. They were more soul satisfying. Yeah. And he told us, he said, I wish I had done this 10 years ago. I wish I had met Jon and started this process earlier. Because now his only regret is not that he spent that money, not that we got him to do that. He just wished that he was still feeling as good as he did in his early part of retirement. Mm-hmm. And now, no, the ankles don't feel as good. The hips don't feel as good. Sleeping in beds for too long as we get a little bit older. That's why I say I want people to front load their retirement. I do not want them to have regrets because they saved when they should have been enjoying life, right? So that's a big one. So if you know your number, what do you need to live off of? And you know for a fact you will not overspend, call me. I can come up with hundreds, if not thousands of ways that you can invest your money in ways that will increase the quality of your life and has nothing necessarily to do with assets.
Let's begin the conversation helping you understand about your plan, your money, your future. It's retirementsolutionshow.com, or just click on the links we've got posted in the show notes.
Thanks for listening to the Retirement Solution Podcast with Jon Hicks. Begin the conversation about your savings plan with Jon and the team at J. Hagan Capital by visiting retirementsolutionradio.com. Be sure to listen to Jon's radio show, The Retirement Solution, Saturdays at 8 a.m. and Sundays at 9 a.m. on News Radio 840 WHAS.
J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not licensed in all 50 states. To find out if J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is licensed in your state, please call 502-690-5635. J. Hagan Capital Incorporated is not affiliated with nor endorsed by the Social Security Administration or any other government agency and does not provide legal or tax advice. By contacting us, you may be provided with information about insurance and annuity products offered through J. Hagan Capital, LLC, NPN number 1882794.